talking. Hello, and we are live. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the weekly update in the NABLL. And this week we have Hayes Donahue from the Charlotte Reapers. How we doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good. We were talking a little bit before, and actually, I just realized while I was running the intro there, I think we talked a little bit before on Instagram last year before Nationals because I kind of called and got some stuff set up from you guys. I think right before you went. Is that correct, or was somebody else running the account?
I do believe that was me. Gosh, that's a year ago now, so now struggling to think, but I do believe that was me.
Yeah, it just kind of it's funny how it all like just flies by, and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it's been a year and craziness.
Right back at it.
Yeah, now here we go again as we're working our way up towards nationals, trying to, well, I mean, as far as you're concerned, trying to get there. Me trying to wait for that announcement, and I'm just, super excited, chomping at the bit. I know we've got the dates, but where it is going to be amazing. So you first started playing box lacrosse when the Charlotte Reapers first formed as a team. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. No prior experience.
Now, did you play field lacrosse before that?
Yes, I did. So I picked up lacrosse in eighth grade, played through high school, and played in college for a little while, and then I've just been playing local men's league for a year or two out of college. And then one of the guys who ran a team around here said he was putting together an indoor team, and I had played, just a pickup league once or twice, when I was in high school. So I thought it'd be fun to actually learn how to play the game, and I've loved it since.
Yeah, no, it's very it's addicting. I say that. It's contagious. The first time you see a box lacrosse game, or I could imagine when you get out on the field, it's got to be tough to to not fall in love with it and not just kind of dedicate yourself. So you started then, and then you played for you were just a player when the first team started, right? And you had 2 years in the IBLA before you guys joined the NABLL.
Correct.
And then at the beginning of the year with NABL or NABLE or the NABLL, I've heard it pronounced a few different ways. You weren't even the GM then, and then all of a sudden, kind of just before Nationals started, you stepped up and took over.
Yes, yes. So wasn't really planning on being the GM. Just was one of those guys in the team who really loved playing. Wanted to make sure that the team was having a good season. It was supported, things of that nature. And our old GM was having some personal scenarios that he needed to deal with, and needed to step back, and wasn't able to basically dedicate the time that was needed to make sure that everything was going to get done and get situated going into the end of the season there. So we needed to find someone who was going to be able to do that. And I had already been kind of in the background helping out just with any general things. So I just kind of stepped up naturally. So it all worked out. It's been a wild ride, but it's been fun so far.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild ride doing all of this, I could imagine. Now, we were talking a little bit beforehand. Now, when you first became GM, you said the biggest thing that surprised you was cost, just because as a player, it was nice. You showed up, you paid when they told you had to pay at the start, or like you kind of had an idea of when it was coming. But what were some of those costs you didn't think about?
Oh, just everything that goes in. Well, partially it's the cost of everything that goes into it, of like the field, the balls, the nets. If you're getting jerseys, any additional gear. If you don't have goalie gear or extra goalie gear, it's probably good to have that as well. But also just how much all of those things cost when you start adding it all up. Things are expensive to play this game. Referees are expensive. Field time's expensive, and generally it's pretty scarce. So you make do with what you have to. And I think I can speak for a lot of the other GMs. I think a lot of guys don't necessarily get the amount of appreciation or recognition that they need, just due to the amount of time that it generally takes to, run an effective team and actually have a group of guys who are actually organized, know what's going on, and are consistent on a regular basis. So hats off to the other GMs who have been doing this longer than me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those unsung hero positions because there's so many little things that go into it just with organizing things. Field time is one of the biggest things, the practices, you're trying to find a time that works best for everybody. But you guys seem to be doing all right. You got off to a pretty good start this season.
Yeah, yeah. So we just had our first weekend of games, or I guess our first day of games last weekend out in Raleigh against the Oak City team. Fast, physical, little bit chippy. Definitely a good time and a good start to the season. We always enjoy playing those guys because it's always competitive there. But we got a good group of guys. I think this is the largest group that we've had as far as guys who've tried out, been committed, and really wanted to make sure that they can get out on the floor this year. So definitely excited to see how things fare when we go to our second weekend in July. We're going to play the Tidewater team, the other group in our division, and then we're going to play a game against the Wild. So nice little rematch from Nationals last year. So we're excited to play them.
Yeah, no, that's a that Wild team is good. And the power rankings just came out. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it that is such a big thing is playing kind of outside of your division, I think, and challenging yourself in the comfort level. Now, you guys got off to a good start in your division. But like you said, it's early in the season. You said the game got a little chippy. That seems to kind of be how almost everybody's opening weekend went whenever you talk to anybody. They had some drama up in the upstate division. I mean, I'm sure it kind of goes everywhere. I mean, you've got guys that have been sitting and haven't played in a while now. They're like frothing at the bit, and you got I don't know, a lot of energy out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where everybody's ready to get back in the box, and once you're there and you start hitting on people, things can escalate pretty quickly, and sometimes it's just part of the game. So it was definitely a good time. But at the end of the day, we're all good buddies. Most pretty much all of us got to go to work the next day, so it's one of those things that it's let's get it out while we're in the box, and then let's go have some beers after.
Oh yeah, no, that is definitely a huge thing. Is you'd hate to see the carryover, and I always find it impressive because, like you said, guys kind of settle it out there, and then they help each other up off the floor, shake hands afterwards, go to the bar, have a beer, and this league. So one of my son's favorite parts of nationals was actually the chugging competition at the start of your game out there. Now that is what is so cool about this league is there is everything in here from guys chugging to the face off to, I mean, a third of this league ended up playing in the PBLA.
Hmm.
It's just insane.
It's interesting. It's a good mixture of guys. It's awesome.
It is. Now, how does your team break down? Do you guys have a bunch of young college guys? Do you have a bunch of older guys that kind of are working full time and doing this, or do you have guys that are really going after it? I mean, how do you kind of fare?
So most of our guys are graduated out of college. We have a handful of guys who are currently in college on our team, but for the most part, guys are anywhere from mid to late 20s, a couple in their 30s, and for the most part, they've all either played field around here and been involved with our teams, or we do have I'd say probably 30 to 40% of our guys have played competitive box at some point in their lacrosse career. So pretty good mixture of fellas. And I think that's why we've been able to be successful pretty early on. Is the core group of guys. There are a handful who've actually played the game before, played it at a high level, and understand how true box is supposed to be played. So I think a lot of the guys like me who had never played before, we're really in a good spot to learn and pick the game up pretty quickly.
Yeah, now that seems to be like a very common thing, and it amazes me that it's like no matter where you are in the US, every team seems to be able to find a couple of box guys that really like understand the game. At least that's what everybody's teammates say is, well, we've
Hmm.
got this guy or this guy, and these guys played here. And I've heard it's a game best passed down, but how did your guys end up down in Charlotte? Because you don't really think of that area when you think of box lacrosse.
No, no, you think of that area because there's typically a lot of finance jobs and a lot of jobs in general around here. So, if you have any aspirations to get into corporate America, Charlotte is a big growing city, and there's a lot of big companies around here. So, you'll see a lot of guys who will come down here, after college, looking for some kind of job in that area, and then ultimately just stick around down here. So it's actually we have a pretty outside of just the box area, the Charlotte community as far as men's lacrosse goes, pretty significant. There's a lot of teams around here, and some of the clubs have been around for multiple decades. So it's one of those things that it's just an area where a lot of guys who especially play in a lot of those big time D2 or even Division 1 schools. Charlotte's one of the bigger cities that are around where they went to school, and naturally they gravitate there. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is really crazy. I always find it just, so wild. So you played the first 2 years. You guys made it to 1 year at nationals with the IBLA, and then in the inaugural year, you guys made it again. So obviously hoping to continue. So like you said, you definitely have some talent down there. You can tell that there is a box. I mean, that was a big thing for me as I came from upstate New York, where everybody tells me anybody who knows how to play box lacrosse is in Canada or northern New York or like scattered around the border. So when we got to nationals and I really got to see how much talent was out there, it was pretty impressive.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I think that's one of the most unique parts of nationals, and why we're super excited to have another chance to go back is. At the end of the day, you're playing with some of the better players in the country. These are teams that have been formed of guys who have played the game at a high level, and pretty much every team has guys who've either played pro or played high level juniors or just phenomenal players who have picked the game up later in their career. And all those games are very competitive, and it's really really nice to be able to do something like that, especially since for guys like me who have never played the game prior to picking it up outside of their actual career in lacrosse. It's really really cool to do something like that you don't there's not really anything else you're going to get to experience like that. It's very unique.
It really is because I had to laugh. So at one point last year, I think it was when the Yetis were playing the Wheat Kings, but you've got Neil Paulus, NLL Hall of Famer, and then you've got the guys that play for the Wheat Kings, and you had Tinney, and there's just so much talent out there on the floor. And then at the same time, we had a U21 goalie, a USA U21 goalie getting to go out there against all these pros. This league really is interesting as far as it brings some super high level competition to guys who wouldn't necessarily get to play in that level.
Hmm. I would definitely agree. I mean, you see those guys who play pro. Obviously, they're impressive to watch, and it's cool to be able to be out there and be a part of it as well. I mean, one of the coolest things for me was it wasn't before it was before the NABLL time, but our first nationals we ended up playing the Albany team, which had I think it was Ty Thompson on the team. I ended up guarding him half the game. And this is a guy that I used to watch on TV and used to kind of idolize when I was in high school. So it's a cool experience for guys like me that most people aren't going to get to experience something like that. That you're just so brought up and immersed in, and then ultimately you get to experience the sport from a whole new perspective, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and like you said, to get to watch all these guys, I'm always so impressed when we go film it. I say after the game, sometimes you're like, wow, this is definitely some of the best lacrosse being played like anywhere. Definitely the most entertaining. I don't know. Unfortunately, not all the games get to be streamed, but we were streamed the Yetis last game, and I tell you what, they made a lot of new fans. He's the GM for the Yeti. He's been having the kids come play ahead of time, and I think it really helps with the attendance. Plus, it gets the kids on the field, and they're all excited. And they were losing their minds at that game. And they like being on the jumbotron. And what was really fun too was afterwards you see all the players, especially your younger guys, when they're getting autographs from the kids. It's just such a cool thing.
That's a unique experience. I hope we get to do that around here in Charlotte sometime. Sadly, we don't really have much of a facility that's formidable for hosting, so we actually practice in basically what used to be an old auto bell garage where the pipes are at 12 feet. So we rough it in terms of practice, but as you've seen from some success, it translates as long as we communicate. We got good game plans in, and obviously everybody's committed to the cause. So hopefully that'll be us one day, but we'll see.
Yeah. So you guys practice in what? What was that? You said you only got 12-foot ceilings.
So we basically practice in an old converted automobile garage that is now a indoor soccer facility where there's still steel beams at 12 feet. So clearing is not necessarily something we get to practice very much. Transition is something that was new to us. Actually, we our first ever game in box, we actually went down. I think it was 3-11 to one of the Atlanta teams. Physically, because we just got cherry picked repeatedly because we had never practiced it before. We ended up winning that game unbelievably, but it was definitely a bit of a shock once we actually got into a floor where you could throw the ball more than 10 feet.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So I was just streaming a Can-Am game the other day where the one team did that almost the entire game. That's something in box lacrosse. If you've got an athletic team, which actually from what I remember with you guys in the Reapers, you guys had a very fast team. You had a lot of athletes. And yeah, that really is something that goes to your advantage, especially in these tournaments where you go at nationals and you're playing, 4 games in 2 days. It's insane.
hmm It's a new approach to it. It's something I wouldn't advise doing all the time, but it is something that can be effective if you got the right group of guys and the right style of play.
Absolutely. Now it seems like you guys are doing that. So you went and you played 2 games at Oak City and the Owls, and actually, I'm really hoping to get down there for July 20. You're playing in that as well, right? With July 23rd and 4th, is it, or 22nd and 23rd?
Yep, whatever that weekend is, we're going to play the Tidewater team out of Hampton, Norfolk area. They're coming down. We were not able to get the scheduling to work out to have them come that first weekend to do a full round robin. So we did a double header against them last weekend, last weekend, and then they came down and played Oak City this past weekend. So we'll be meeting up with them, playing a doubleheader, and then working a game with the Wild in between.
Now, how far of a drive is it for, like, how far are you from Oak City?
It's about 2 hours, 2:15, not too bad.
So definitely doable. Nothing that's outrageous. What is your farthest drive as far as in your region? Is it the Tidewater team or is it Oak City?
Yeah, so it would be the Tidewater team. So weirdly enough, it honestly all worked out as far as geographics go. Raleigh, where Oak City is essentially smack in the middle between us and Tidewater. They're basically about 2.5 hours as well. So it kind of just works out that we do everything there. We don't even have a facility to host, so we've just kind of agreed as a region to just handle all of our games there because their facility is very solid and able to work with us there. So hopefully we can find something that'll be a little bit closer. But honestly, that's a problem for next year, and we'll deal with it as it comes.
Oh, so this year you guys don't actually have a home facility at all. You're basically a tournament team that you're playing out of Charlotte where you guys can practice, but all your games are on the road.
Yep, that has been the case since we've started.
That is that is definitely an interest. It's so weird to me, like how different all the teams in here are. So I don't know if you've watched any of these before, but Jobson with the Thousand Island and like Paul and a lot of these guys run these, where they really have like gates coming in and they're going for the crowds. And then you guys not even having a home facility, and to see the way. Do you guys have a coach that stands and coaches, or do you guys just kind of Reggie Dunlop style it out there?
So we do have two coaches. Luckily enough, both of them they're both involved with the lacrosse community pretty heavily around here in Charlotte as far as field goes, and they both played on the I can't remember what the league was, but maybe it was the original PLL when they had it in the indoor league. They played for the Carolina Copperheads. So they both played professional box before, knew the game, and they've helped us really since the start of the team be that coaching arm and helping guys get an understanding of the game and more context around that. So obviously there's limitations to being able to have them out at everything, especially from a compensation perspective. We're winging it the best we can, but they dedicate a lot of time to this team, and we couldn't honestly we couldn't thank them anymore for the efforts and all the time that they dedicate to us as well, especially with both of them being fathers, or in our head coach's case being having a second one on the way recently.
Oh yeah, that is definitely a tough sell, I'm sure, when he's getting ready to go. But yeah, it is so crazy how it works. So when you play the Wild team, how far of a drive is it for you guys to get to like where they are in Virginia?
So if we were to go up there, it would be like probably a 6 hour ride. But they're going to be meeting in Raleigh as well, so we're just going to do it round robin style. I think the because of the scheduling issues with the first weekend and us having to play a doubleheader versus us just doing traditional round robin style, we're going to do a doubleheader versus the Tidewater team, and I think the Oak City team is going to do a doubleheader versus the Wild. So little bit of a interesting structure, but we had to make it work to make sure we all had the same amount of games in terms of seeding for regionals.
Yeah, and it's cool because so I mean they're in the Mid-Atlantic region, and I've kind of wondered how, is there any way that they can encourage people to play more out of division games like that? Because it's nice that you guys are doing it, but not a lot of teams do it because of the way it doesn't really affect your your position in the playoffs or anything.
Hmm. It is kind of a tough sell for a lot of teams, especially in our case particularly because geographically, the closest team to us is 2 hours away, and then the next closest team from that is 4 hours away. So, if we're talking about going and doing things with other teams, it would have to be something that would be you know it would need to make sense for our team and our season. And something that I hope we can do next year is be able to lump it into maybe one big weekend where we can do a partial division with ours, and maybe the other Southeast division where it's like Nashville, Atlanta, Knoxville. We were in their division last year, and we split to make it a little bit easier from a geography and travel perspective. So I'm hoping that that's something that we can do next year. Transparently, as far as structure for this year, we really just wanted to make sure that as far as the season goes, that we have everything planned out, we're organized, we're set up, and we have a good year that guys, are able to be involved and actively committed to. It's been a little bit hectic over the first couple of years, partially, starting with COVID. It was, very hard to battle that. So it's something where I just want to make sure that we have everything situated. We're very organized, and the guys have a good experience this season. And then if we expand and add more games or add a more robust season next year, it's something that we're going to have time and have enough committed guys to be able to plan that out.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know. I give you guys so much credit because just even like gambling, when you're sitting there trying to figure out the tryouts, it's like, are we going to have enough guys show up? And the way these men's leagues work is, yeah, you've got a lot of guys who, can be dedicated, and for some teams that is such a huge part of them making sure they have, guys that'll sign up to make every game. Whereas other teams, you kind of have guys that, well, this week they've got 6 guys or 11 guys, and then the next week they've got 22, and you kind of get a wide variety. Do you guys have a pretty consistent roster, or is it very sporadic for you as well?
It's pretty sporadic for us. There's been, I'd say there's probably a core group of 15 to 20 who've been pretty much around since the start. Obviously at the end of the day, everybody's has lives and personal commitments as well. So it definitely is always changing as far as who we're actually bringing to game day. This year in particular, we do have more guys who are actually committed to being a part of the team outside of just the couple of weekends that we're setting up in terms of being on involved with practices and then hoping to qualify for regionals or nationals. So we should hopefully continue the trend of having more guys that are going to stick around and play with us year over year. But at the end of the day, you're always going to be dealing with a little bit of that. Well, we just have to see who's available on game day and deal with it as it comes.
Yeah, no, it's not something you can really control. I know like going to nationals, we talked you guys at nationals were actually supposed to play Collar City, and then Collar City, because of injuries down there, and they had some one guy just had a baby, another guy was in a wedding, and these were guys that like make everything, but with that kind of stuff going on, you're not going to, and that's kind of something you're always going to battle with men's league. Now, you as the GM, is that something? Have you guys been pretty close on rosters, or you can essentially assure that you'll have at least 15 guys show up that you can get a good roster in?
Yes, with the amount of guys, particularly with the amount of guys that we've had this year, I we should have no issues being able to fill out a roster. Now, as far as of the 30 to 40 guys who have signed up, have tried out, and have been involved with us since the start of this season, I don't know who those are going to be because that really does come down to who's available and who can actually show up. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't have issues with numbers like we have in the past couple of years when we were first getting started when everything wasn't quite as organized. So that's what I hope that at least I haven't really asked the team for feedback directly, and I probably should, but hopefully everybody gets that sense that everything's a little bit more organized, and we know that we're going to be able to show up and have the bodies to be able to actually play these games and not be dying on the floor like we have in previous years.
Yeah, that's always an interesting experience, and that's one thing that the NABLL board did that I really liked was they gave out comment cards at the end, and they really asked everybody what they wanted, and officiating was a big thing, so that's why they spent so much time on that. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff they've done, but Dave Mather has done a ton of work getting hooked up with with the NLL refs, and I know the ones up north had their work cut out for them the last couple games. I mean, they've had what Paper City and, and Thousand Islands, I think, had like 28 goals one team and 16, 17 the other. So you're talking like a 40 goal game. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty significant. And yeah, I don't mean obviously when you're talking about the teams that are going to be more up north, you guys I luckily are going to have a little bit more access to officials. For us it's a little bit harder to get guys situated because there's only so many guys in the area who've actually done a competitive box game. So yes, for us it's a little bit tougher to get those situated, get them scheduled. But I will say, as far as the guys who were able to get situated for our first weekend of games, definitely I think a step up from what we've seen in past years. So I think we're trending in the right direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was something like I never even considered until I was talking to, I think it was Dave or somebody about it, and they were like, "Yeah, they're like you guys at least have a steady supply of refs." And I was thinking because I know they always want three officials on the floor up there, and that's a ref's choice thing, but they sometimes struggle to get that to happen. And then he goes, "Could you imagine being in these other areas where you don't have?" The big thing is if you don't have the youth games to kind of go get your practice in, to kind of get your feet underneath you, that's got to be tough too, man. Could you imagine being official the first time you step out there? You just watch a couple games and they're like, "Hey, do us a favor and go ref this."
Oh, dude, I know how it is. I am an official, so I 100% get it. It's a lot to keep up with, and I mean, it's hard to ref a field lacrosse game where things are more spread out and you can see things better, and then you get in the box where there's just bodies, balls, and sticks flying at you. You don't even know what's happening. It's hard to pay attention and be able to see everything.
Yeah, it's nuts. So do you ref box too or just field?
So I just ref field now. Basically started the certification for box, but transparently, there's not really any box across around here for me to officiate. The only games I would officiate would be our own, and I play in them, so it doesn't really make too much sense for me. But it is something where the youth programs around here are really starting to invest in indoor and getting kids into the box game. One of the local teams around here actually just bought up some boards that they're going to be putting up. They're not, traditional glass and everything like you'd see in an indoor facility, but it's at least something to get the kids comfortable with the game and starting to get adjusted to it. Because I mean, as I'm sure any player who's played significant box can attest, is just the ability to be better with your stick, be better in tight spaces, and ultimately have a little bit more craft to your game. So I'm definitely excited to see where the game goes around here. Hopefully that also comes with additional facilities and just more access to the game, because right now box in Charlotte is basically being held together by this men's team.
You guys are the only box that exists in Charlotte.
It's we were, until these little kids teams started popping up right around, I believe it was probably November of last year. So we're hopeful that everyone else gets involved, and that brings up a need for more facilities and more areas where we can actually play the game.
Absolutely. Now, where did they now you said they don't have like the traditional glass. Do they have nets? Is it chain link fence or was it just the boards and they didn't have anything up?
Yeah, so it's a net on top of kind of the thick plastic, and so it's not quite as bouncy as a traditional like hockey board.
Yeah. No, I've seen quite a few of those put together at Lax and I did theirs outdoors, but they had glass on it. But yeah, it's different, and the biggest thing I think you don't get from the practice, and it's probably not quite as big of a deal with the young kids, but is the way you watch guys bounce it off that back plexiglass for a pass to pass it around a defender. That always, it's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, being able to get crafty and also just knowing, where the ball is going to go, getting used to how things bounce, how shots are going to go, how to pick it up off of a board. It's a little bit different than when you're just running at an open field with a guy hacking on you.
Yeah, you can. Now, where you guys are at the soccer facility, what is behind your nets? Do you guys have, is it just a soccer net, or do you guys have something on the back that you get to practice with?
So we put up just a super thick netting, basically just to stop balls from going through. We don't have any sort of like plywood or anything. Yeah, the facility is very small, so I don't even know where we would put some such piece of wood.
Yeah. No, it's like you said, you do what you can to make sure you guys get a spot to practice. It's cool that you do it. So is it concrete or is it turf?
So it is turf. It's like carpet turf.
Okay. So have you ever played on concrete before then, or have you only played like turf?
Yes, so we played a concrete when we played in down in Florida for IVLA. I don't know if you were down there or has anybody talked about that, but they basically ripped up the floor of where the basketball floor would be for the Orlando Magic's D team, and then just slapped some painter's tape on the ground, and we got after it. So
That's
it was
awesome.
interesting, stepping on holes where poles would be stuck in the ground and stuff. It was interesting.
And that was your first chance to really play on something like that to see. So the way the ball bounces off of, any surface other than turf is completely different, especially that concrete. First
Oh
time
yeah.
I've watched some of those games, yeah, the way it comes off of, yeah, bounces and all of a sudden it just kind of has a mind of its own.
Oh yeah, we got absolutely exposed against the Seneca Nation team because that's basically how they would pass the ball was they would just pass it off of the concrete and hit these weird little bounce passes which would turn just slightly enough to catch a guy cutting. And I mean god, they were good and they knew exactly how to play in an area like that. So not to mention I know a lot of those guys have played for a long time together.
Oh yeah, no, I was just out in Seneca there the Allegheny game I did last weekend and they the way they bounce it off the concrete and everything, it's you can tell those guys have been playing box their entire life and field is a secondary sport to them. Just the way they handle the stick. It's so different. You don't see that 100 mile an hour like cradle. They just kind of run with it most of the time. They're hardly ever even yeah, it's weird. It's definitely a
Yeah, it's doing less to do more.
yeah. Yeah, and the whole way with the twister and spinning around, and instead of switching hands, very few guys you ever see actually switch hands. And I don't know. They play a very two-way style too, though, which is tough. So you don't like the a lot of American teams. I don't know what kind of team you guys have as far as if you do transition D offense, but they a lot of the teams up on the nations they play just straight two-way hustle. You've got a couple of offensive players and a couple of D guys, but pretty much everybody is expected to play two ways.
Yes. So for the most part, our team is pretty segmented into O versus D. You got those couple guys who will stay on, and then the few offensive guys that we know if they need to stay on, or we're more than happy to keep them on. But at the end of the day, we're pretty separate in that regard. Just natural what we know. We put guys where we think they're most useful. So I think that would be an ideal adaptation of having a group of guys or an organization that's been around for a little bit longer where you can start to understand guys abilities and who can do what and how you can utilize them more. But at the end of the day that just comes with time. So I think our hope is to get to that point, but now we're pretty segmented.
Yeah, and now I think as the youth program grows, because that's where, as I've been talking to a lot of these coaches, it's because they just say, they teach you as a little kid, they don't teach you to play offense or defense. They're teaching you. So I think as your group gets older, because what you probably have is you've got a few guys that you said played box, but a lot of your guys were what field players that now you guys got like all kinds of levels of college, or did you guys get anybody that was brand new lacrosse player? Or everybody pretty much played college or somewhere in high school.
Yeah, pretty much everybody has played competitively at some level. Most of our guys have played either Division 1, 2, or 3 at some level there. So most of the players at least understand the level of lacrosse in which we're playing.
Yeah, well, I guess it makes sense because really, I mean, who else would be crazy enough as an adult to see this sport for the first time and then get out there and be like, you know what, I'm gonna do that. I can totally handle trying to pick that ball up in front of the net while I got four guys just whacking me and somebody cross-checking me as they're trying to throw me out of the way.
Yeah, it's field lacrosse. It's a little bit different. Guys will go a little bit easier on you if you don't necessarily know what you're doing with a cradle. If you're coming across the middle, and you don't know what you're doing in box. You're gonna have a bad time.
You gotta have a bad day. I actually was able to clip a ton of highlights this weekend. I don't know what it was this weekend, but we there was just monster hit after monster hit in both games. Everybody kind of freaked out about the Yeti fight and them with the eels, and really there was two knuckleheads. Everybody else in there just kind of it was more of a shoving match than anything else. I mean, it got all the fans excited, and they were pumped. I mean,
Hmm.
you had the goalie who, two-hand tomahawk somebody in the neck. I was like, what are you doing? And then
What
the
is going on?
yeah, and the player that ran and fought with the goalie. So it was kind of like, well, they deserved each other. That's kind of how this works. And the other guys all just kind of were shoving each other and like, pulling face masks and stuff. But it was it was an interesting show.
Yeah, I mean, at the I could imagine there is a lot of face washes in that one.
A lot of face wash. And that was so I was a hockey player growing up. I had never seen boxing until a couple years ago. But I'm very familiar with all that. And like you see the fingers going into the face mask, and that's why you'll watch a lot of guys won't take their gloves off until they realize the helmet's off because they're like, no, I'm not messing with that. It's crazy for really how fast it just like will escalate if the refs uh you know don't kind of take control, and that's where you like you said you get lucky when you have refs that really know what they're doing, and having an improvement this year for you guys must have been nice.
No, most definitely. Things always get a little heated. Things get out of hand. I mean, at the end of the day, we're playing a sport that is incredibly physical, and lacrosse in general. If you're talking in the field game, is already a very physical game, and then you input the essentially hockey with lacrosse sticks. It's even more so. So it's something that sometimes you got to keep yourself in check. And at the end of the day, I think the leniency around penalties, fighting, and some of the things that happen, it's more understood that things are going to happen in those games as long as they stay within the confines of the boards. It is what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, I don't know, everybody I think handled it very well up here. I know there was some shenanigans on social media afterwards, but
Well, that's expected anyway.
I was just gonna say, I think that's kind of par for the course now. We get a lot of he said, she said shenanigans, but I tell you, having these games taped is such a huge thing because what could have, I think what initially gets reported, and then when you actually kind of see, it's just like, oh, okay, it was just this, and it kind of got a little miscued, and yeah, a bunch of stupid stuff happened, but thankfully we get to record all the Yeti games. Now, do you guys have anybody that records your games, or do you guys just have somebody down there with the camera? I saw a bunch of pictures posted.
Yes. So I was not involved with setting up the stream. However, I do believe the Oak City team did have somebody who was able to set up a stream for us. So I can see if that link is available and actually send that to you as well if you'd like to look at that. I do think it's
Yeah,
posted.
no, that would be awesome. I try to stay as much on top of this stuff as I can because I want guys to send the highlights. I'd like to take this show that we're doing and be able to clip a week's worth of highlights. And I've got a ton of Yeti ones, but I feel bad if I'm only putting
Just gassing up your team.
right, just gassing up the Yeti guys. So I've got a bunch of ones that are getting ready to come out, but I've been what I've been doing is just checking the hashtags too. So if anybody, does the hashtag, as long as you put hashtag NABLL, I should be able to see those. I'm gonna run those through right now. I just did it the other day, and then I send them to
I got
myself.
to say I've done a lot. I've utilized Instagram as a consumer for a long time in my life. I still am not very privy to the hashtags. I will start doing that more.
I do it all the time, and I mean this is literally what I do most of the time, and I still forget to do it. But
Yeah.
if you put in the hashtag NABLL, you'll get to see all these amazing posts that everybody is kind of putting up. It's been oh that's not us here. I don't, oh wait, Wells Fargo. Who's playing there? Oh, that was PBLA. Somebody lied. They tagged the NABLL
They're just trying
shenanigans.
to get us all into
Yeah,
it.
those don't. Yeah, I don't know who that team is though, because that doesn't look like. Huh. Those don't look like PBLA jerseys. There's more Yeti stuff. Paul knows how to do it. The Paper City Oaks game. Now this one, I've gotten to see some highlights from this game, and the one got 8 million views. Did you see that on Instagram?
Oh, are you talking about that monster hit where the guy was cross checking him in the back of the head and absolutely got blasted in the next week?
Yes, that
Yeah,
was.
that was one of the best videos I could have asked for. That was great.
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy is, but I gotta say he kind of had that one coming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of like we were talking. How the game has a way of taking care of itself out there. They do a pretty good job policing themselves out there for the most part. It's
Yeah. Well, you noticed the guy when he after he got hit, he didn't really try to fight him or anything because he kind of knew somebody was gonna hit
yeah, and he kind of knew like, okay, there you go, bud. But so the
him.
it's it's definitely been been interesting. I love seeing the intensity and just that all the games so far. Everybody has been there hasn't been a lot of blowouts in the league. You've seen a couple teams that do a little better than others and are kind of running their division, but I don't know. I can't wait. You made the power rankings. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to be, mentioned amongst, some of those top teams that are there. At the end of the day, I think we got a squad of pretty talented guys who, if we're able to bring a whole roster of nationals, I think we can definitely contend. I mean, our I don't know I don't know what the score of the game was that started with the beer chug, but all the other ones were, within 2 to 3 goals. So and the other one was a tie. So we're at a point where we can play with a lot of these teams. It's just making sure that we got enough guys to get up there and make sure that everybody's able to travel, is healthy, and can put together.
Seems to be just as much a part of it as really anything else is just trying to make sure you can get enough guys there.
Yeah, especially for and a lot of those, probably some of the upstate markets and Midwest markets know as well. It's a hell of a drive or a flight, and sometimes those flights are not as cheap as you'd like them to be.
No, how is your airport? Do you, because I know they say some airports are cheaper than they do better than others. I know a lot of people complain about the
Charlotte is
Syracuse.
not ideal.
Oh no.
Charlotte is well. So all right, I'll take that back. There's a lot of options in terms of places that you can fly because it is a big airport. It's very busy. There's a lot of flights that come in and out of here. However, it is primarily an American hub. There is 90 to 95% American flights. So there's not a lot of variation or competition, i.e., prices don't necessarily go down very much. So flights can be excessively expensive for absolutely no reason.
So it's just kind of like randomly, okay, no, everybody's gonna get charged for this one. Sorry, guys.
Most definitely. A couple of times I've looked at like flying out to Chicago or flying to well heck I think I paid almost 550 or $600 for my flight to Columbus when last year when we found out we finally made it. And that was because I physically wasn't going to be able to drive because I was working during the week. But it's one of those things that it's like that every time we try to fly anywhere. I think I was trying to fly to Chicago for one of my buddies' weddings one time, and it was I think it was they were trying to charge me $850, and I was looking at it like 2 months in advance, and I'm like, what is this? Why is it so expensive? I'm trying to fly the back of the plane.
Yeah, it's like I want the worst seat. I'm fine. Just stick me
Yeah,
somewhere.
like what kind of gold luxury airline am I flying? Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy sometimes what you see. We drive pretty much everywhere, but we're big drivers. We just kind of drive all over the country.
I imagine. Well, especially if you guys having all that equipment, it's probably easier.
That's the other thing too is when you start talking packing camera gear and the computers are such a pain and nobody treats your gear nice. Yeah, every time I watch them out the window at the airplane, they're just like chucking stuff and
Just
I'm like,
stressing you out.
yeah, it's like thousands of dollars worth of equipment too, and it's always I even get nervous setting it up at the games because we go all over the place and we do all these games and like it's always seems like a good time, but my son was laughing at me the other day. He's like, all it takes is one accident, and like now we don't get to stream all these games, and it's like, no, we don't charge enough to replace our equipment like ever. If something happens to the computer or camera, it's like we're back out of commission.
I understand how that is, and I respect you guys for doing it and being cautious.
Yeah, so that's everything just gets packaged in the car. Actually the cases are some of the most expensive parts of the whole ordeal. It's yeah, it gets expensive quick when it comes to broadcasting.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. At the end of the day, this is a lot of us are still getting to play the game that we love and getting to see the pictures, the videos, the highlights, the things like that. It's a cool thing to be a part of, and we need somebody to do it. So we appreciate you for taking the time and the investment to do it.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to the NABLL. They took a gamble bringing us out to nationals last year, and I'm sure they were like, "Wait, what? This crazy family's going to show up?" And at the time, we didn't really have the best camera. I really wish we could have had the camera we have now for nationals because you guys have some sweet highlights. I mean, just as you're clipping through the games, there was so many nice highlights from there. Like that Spencer Love doing the backflip after the Wild scored the goal and not being able
Mm-hmm.
to catch that. I was like, oh, this sucks so bad.
Well, we know that this year we should be able to get some more good highlights. I'm excited for us to be able to get back and have a lot of those high powered teams. At the end of the day, there's a lot of good lacrosse, a lot of good play that's going to happen. So it'd be nice that people can get to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. We should be out there this year doing it. Now, what as you guys work your way through the season, you guys are doing the round robin thing going through. Now, before your playoffs, uh, do you guys go get like time at a actual facility? Do you guys try to play outside, or you guys just always rock out your practice facility until it's time to go?
Usually just practice, and then we show up, and then we fix what we're not doing well once we get the time to chat in the middle of the first period. That's usually how it goes.
It's like, ah, that's the first time the first time that'll go off. Well,
Yeah, I'd say we're typically not a first quarter team.
well, I mean, that's definitely if you're gonna take a quarter off, that is the quarter to take off. Yeah, here's one of your guys' goals. Boom. Yeah. I won't know what these are other than they're your goals because I'm not great at labeling stuff. But yeah, I figured while we're sitting here talking over the top of it, all it says is like Reaper's first goal, Reaper's third goal, great fake.
Oh, that was a
It's like great fake. I don't even, who knows, but hopefully this will be cool. But yeah, this would have been a pretty sweet with the other view. But yeah, you guys were very athletic. And that kid is I believe he was the under 21 Team USA box goalie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I mean that was
Oh,
pretty impressive when you guys. I tell you the amount of talent. I never thought of Minneapolis, and then when they were like, "Well, yeah, there's a bunch of guys that played for the Swarm that just weren't moving to Georgia," I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Because yeah, that was good. They were really good.
yeah, I do know. I do know there
The
were a handful
tanks
of
are
guys
starting to
who
run.
were involved with the swarm who just stayed up there. Which, I mean, it makes sense if you build roots in a city and then all of a sudden the team's leaving. It's kind of hard when you have a full time job that pays you there.
Yeah, yeah, especially once you get yourself settled in and you're like, "Am I really gonna move for this?" Probably not.
Also, I feel like getting adjusted to the Georgia heat after the Minneapolis cold, that'd be a hell of an adjustment.
Yeah, that would be bad. Now here's one of these hidden ball tricks that actually worked. Who was this on your team?
Oh, let me see. Who was it?
44?
It was Alec Johnson and Keelan Peelan. So Alec, I believe Alec played in the CLL for a little while. He played up in Canada as well, or he played at Robert Morris for field in college, and then Keelan played at Queens. And I believe he was drafted by the Thunderbirds, but I think he's having a knee surgery this year, so he's actually unable to play with us this season, which sucks. We love having him out there, but yeah, those guys play really well together.
I never
Andrew
played.
Williams? Yeah, it's crazy. And then every time I drag it in, I got to mute it. I forgot to build a scene ahead of time, so it would have automatically muted. But the thankfully we were close enough on these that the camera caught most of it pretty good. Yeah, you guys had a ton of athletes, and then you guys had you had a was it 33 on your team, wicked fast defensive transition player,
Yeah, Devin.
Devin.
Devin's one of the fastest guys I've ever
Oh my
met.
god, yeah, he is so much fun to watch. I remember watching him out there and like that's my favorite style, that tenacious, just like in your face, get the ball, fly up the floor and like when they, it's like are they going to shoot? They going to pull it out, wait for the offense, are they going to jump in and pass? I love that style. He was a lot of fun to watch. When you talk to him again, make sure you tell him, I want
Hey,
Wow, what a
hell
save,
yeah.
Alan.
more highlights of him. I know I probably got some somewhere. I made a clip for him once, I think, cuz wait, yeah, was he 69 maybe? Because I've got
No, I think he was wearing 84.
aha.
Jersey was definitely too big for him. That was one of the extras that I had. Next year we should be getting new uniforms once we get through a whole season. We got a couple sponsors now. Hopefully things are a little bit more affordable next year, so we should be able to do a slight rebrand and be a little bit more comfortable in our unis.
That is such a big thing though, is trying to pick up sponsors now.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
has that been something like? Do you do sales at all, or is that all new to you trying to pick up sponsors, or do you have somebody else doing it for you?
So I've done, I work in sales, I work in recruiting, so I understand how the process works. But at the end of the day, we're a beer league lacrosse team. We don't necessarily have a ton that we can offer in terms of a value proposition. So a lot of times it's more so just working your network, see who's available. But we were able to actually work out. We just got sponsored by one of the local breweries around here that really wanted to get more involved in some of the local sports scenes, and we hooked up with them, reached out, and basically said, this is a community that likes to drink a lot of beer, so this would be a good group to spend some money with. And they agreed, and we're excited to see where that goes. They're going to actually help us host some events coming up here as well. We're going to run a just a kind of a team night, as well as an actual fundraising beer pong tournament, or water pong tournament. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good time.
That is that's like I know the Yeti have a couple of beer sponsors and so many of these teams too. Actually Can-Am, they have picked up a lot of dispensary sponsors has been a big thing for Can-Am. But you definitely I think you got to know your audience and you got to go like you said you're getting guys that, just want to kind of be more involved because it's people that hang out. I know after every game like when we go to Bag Square for the Yetis, they probably get their sponsor money back by the end of the season, I would imagine, if not a little more.
Oh yeah, I told him, I was like, after practice, you're getting every guy coming over here having at least 2 to 3 beers. I mean, we just beat on each other for 2 hours. I'm sure we could use one, you know.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, and that's kind of how it works. As long as you've got that nice local connection, that's usually how all these beer leagues should work. And it's nice to see the community that sticks to that, where you get your grassroots efforts.
Most definitely, we're hopeful to find some other businesses that we can partner up with as well. But we got one in the bag, so that's the most important part.
Yeah, yeah. The first one's the hardest, it seems like, and then after you get that, you'll be all right.
It adds, I feel like, a layer of
Takes a
legitimacy
shot.
that, hey, like, we're not just a ragtag bunch of
Oh, we
guys,
got a
we're
break.
somewhat of an organization.
Yeah, that is it. It just it makes everybody it's
And a
cool.
goal! And a goal!
It's really cool when you get the names on the back of the jerseys and everybody gets, it just kind of does add the next level to it. That's one of the things I like with the highlights is it kind of adds I don't know, it seems like people really love it, especially when you do the juniors games. Those kids freaking love it. They go nuts.
Hmm. Yeah, it provides a level of, like, you made the team, you're one of the guys. At the end of the day, it's always cool to wear the jersey, but if you don't get to keep it, it's not quite as cool.
No, it's not, yeah, it is way cooler when you get your own jersey at the end of the year and you kind of get to that's one of my favorite things is my kids wear the jerseys now. I haven't worn them forever. My daughter will wear a couple of the old ones, but other than that, there's not really much you do with old jerseys. They just kind of sit there.
No, exactly. But it's
Everybody wants it.
nice to have the mementos.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, especially so that is one thing though. I mean, especially you guys have been to nationals a couple times, so those jerseys are collector items. You should start getting them autographed.
Maybe if we find an arena, we can start throwing them at some kids and doing a memorabilia sale.
Yeah, I tell you, the kids is really the coolest part. That was when the Golden Bears came up last year to play, and then they got to see how the Yetis do it. They had them sign it. One kid got a stick broke over him, and he was like, "Will you get the kid who broke the stick on to sign it?" And he actually went and got him, and it was Todd Lloyd. I love this kid. That was how I met him, and he ended up playing the PBLA. I've talked to him a couple times. I love that guy. He's a absolute blast. He always comes and finds me. I love getting to meet all of you guys. It's usually a pretty wild bunch of guys that goes, and everybody's a lot more fun at these events.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to look at it from, I think, a holistic perspective of, we all got jobs, we got careers, we definitely don't do this full time, so it's a pretty significant commitment for a lot of these guys to do this for a whole season, and then, for especially guys like us and you all as well who have to either drive or fly, it's a significant time and actual money investment in a lot of circumstances too, to be able to go and do these things. And being able to be a part of it and immerse yourself in it, it's a cool, and as I said earlier, a really unique experience that a lot of people aren't going to get to experience if you're not committed to it.
No, most people don't get to, it, and that's one thing. The NABLL, they say it's the Generals Managers League, so I always like asking the GMs, how do you didn't really get the experience of managing a team anywhere else, but I mean, how do you like the way that the board's been set up and the way they've allocated 51% of the money to make sure it always goes back into it?
I think it's good. I think the biggest thing is making sure that they're listening. Frankly, if we're talking candidly, I think that was really the downfall of the IBLA. I think they had a good thing starting, and I think they stopped listening to the people who actually make the league run. And that's where it all starts. If you don't have teams, you don't have teams bought into the league, then the league's not ultimately going to work. And I think that's something that they're really trying to do is listen to us and hear our complaints, hear our gripes. Listen to us bitch a little bit here and there. But I think they're really, doing a good job of making sure that, the teams are feeling heard, addressing issues as they can. I think the biggest thing is just making sure they're continuing to do that and listening to those guys who are reaching out, because those are the guys who are not only going to help keep teams in, but ultimately they're going to be the ones who are going to be helping other teams come out. When I started thinking of the GM, I mean, half the time I was talking to the Oak City guy about things that they were doing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it's, those kinds of guys are the guys you got to keep around, because it's what ultimately is going to grow the league.
Yeah, 100%, and that definitely seems to be something they're focused on. They do all the town hall meetings. They're really trying to address, getting the resources out there for the refs so that way they can get it. But at the end of the day, with the refs, like we were talking about, without the feel or the youth experience to be able to go to the games and get your feet on the
Mm-hmm.
floor or somewhere, like if you had guys that it doesn't work for you because you're playing, but if you had anybody in the area that wanted to do it, being able to go to a practice or do a scrimmage, if you are anywhere that doesn't have a lot of box lacrosse, you don't get those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely tough, and I hope that that's something that they continue to invest in, whether that be physically, helping pay for referees, travel, getting good guys in, or helping with the development of as well. That's something that I hopeful to continue to see, and as these teams continue to get more built up, and hopefully these organizations get or more organizations get involved, there's going to be more opportunities for refs to get practice and experience as well. I mean, it's a learning curve for everybody in a sense.
Oh yeah, big time. Now, what is the farthest you guys travel besides for nationals? So I've seen some of these teams travel quite far for their out of conference games.
Yes, so we've traditionally over the last couple of years, the farthest we've gone is either Atlanta or Knoxville, which is about 4 hours from Charlotte. But this year we're doing everything in Raleigh. As you and I kind of talked about, I think before the call, the Raleigh team is right in the middle of us and the Tidewater team, pretty much perfectly in the middle geographically. So it just makes sense for us to kind of do everything there from a regional perspective. And I didn't want to load up our schedule too much this year, given this is my first year being involved with it as a GM. First year we've had, some major changes as far as our structure goes. So I wanted to make sure it was a relatively easy season for everybody to put in their schedule, be prepared, and get after it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's guys like you that make this happen. So I know I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody in the you never hear it from most of the guys, but most of the guys that play on your team really do appreciate it, and all of us that get to watch. I don't know. My favorite part still is when you get to watch the younger guys that still are kind of on the fence about whether or not they could try to go pro, and you start teaching some of these like 22, 23-year-old young men, and they're like, wait, this is the first time I ever played this sport. This is interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, it's nice to see, you get that kind of camaraderie of, everybody's older, everybody's competitive, everybody's played, competitive sports at a high level, so they understand what it's like to be in there, battle with your boys. But at the same time, a lot of us haven't played that high of level, and there's always a lot to learn within this game because it's very unique in the way that it can be approached.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy to see. So, like the body types blows me away too. So you'll go out there and you'll have like a 22-year-old stud athlete in his prime, just came out of college, and then you'll have like a middle-aged guy, a little bit overweight, but has phenomenal, like soft hands or can really play defense and really good in short spurts. And you get to see all kinds of body types out there.
Oh, most definitely. One of our lefties who's we kind of he's kind of a player coach for us, Brandon Brown. He's late 30s lefty. Just played the game for a long time, and he's obviously not your 22-year-old. He's fresh out of college. Who's still in playing shape, but I tell you what, he's good for a couple goals a game, and he's going to be good for a couple assists a game. That's for sure.
It is crazy and I think a lot of that is, you said he's played forever. Being able to anticipate what happens ahead of time and kind of knowing the setup and getting yourself in the right position instead of having to rely on your speed and your footwork.
Hmm. There is something to be said about being experienced and knowing the game, and likewise with your teammates. The more you play together, the more you guys know where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, and how you're going to get there. It all starts to work a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I love it. And with the same core group that you've got, I can't wait. I hope you guys make it to nationals again. I can't wait to see you there. But it's been an hour. I told you the time flies by once we start talking.
It did. It went quick. We covered a lot of topics, so I'm glad we were able to connect. I wasn't really prepared to get on a talk show on Tuesday, but hey, we're here and we had a good time doing it.
No, I really appreciate you doing this too because it was kind of late notice that I got a hold of you. I had something else was supposed to be going on and they backed out. And I was like, man, that Charlotte Reapers guy, I remember talking to him and I really loved, honestly, the one thing I really remembered about your team was just how much fun it was out there. You guys had the chugging competition and you guys had so much speed, but it also was just a like a very lighthearted, a fun team. Like you guys seemed like a cool group of guys to hang out with.
We like to get after it, have a good time. At the end of the day, we want to be able to compete and play physical. We're not going to be nice to you inside the boards, but at the end of the day, all it is sports, and we're there to have a good time and enjoy it. So we might as well be able to enjoy a couple of cold ones after.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Hayes. It's been an absolute blast. And, if there's ever anything you need from us, we'd love to do it. Try to get any of the clips. If you're going to send me that link, I'd appreciate it. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we end this?
No, I just keep up these shows, keep up the highlights. I think half of the growth of the game in the league is the content and the access to it and getting people excited about it. And I think this is where it all starts. So I applaud you for leading the charge there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everybody, remember, send us your highlights. We will clip them. We will have them on the show. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Of course, take care. Bye.